Yeah, that's right. The kind of provisional title was The Buddha as Goal, but I've named this talk From Spiral to Mandala because our particular focus tonight is going to be the Phi Buddha Mandala, of which there's a beautiful painting by Gaurava on the shrine, which is what made that commotion earlier. So yes, do come and have a look at that painting when you can. So in this series, we've looked at the Wheel of Life, which you could see as a map of the human condition. We've looked at escaping the wheel through the point of freedom and entering onto the spiral path. And you could say, well, what is the point of all of this? And that is what this talk is here to serve. What would you say? What is the point of escaping the wheel of life and entering the spiral? Yeah.
To escape suffering forever.
To escape suffering forever. Any other thoughts?
To help other people escape suffering
forever. Very good. Yeah, so enlightenment, indeed. Yeah, so as Sangeeta just said, escaping suffering, helping others to escape suffering. Enlightenment is actually why we're all in this room tonight. There's something of that has resonated somewhere in our being, otherwise we wouldn't be here. And the thing with enlightenment is it is deeply mysterious. It's deeply mysterious to us. It's deeply mysterious in words and concepts, and yet we're going to try and point that way tonight. So some sort of attempts to evoke what it is. So it's known as the supreme joy, the great bliss, incomparable bliss, the deathless. And enlightenment, so the Sanskrit word nirvana, it literally means to blow out or to extinguish, sort of like a candle flame being blown out. And what it's referencing is the extinguishing of craving, of hatred, and of mental confusion or delusion. The end of suffering, yeah. And often, when we're trying to get a bit of an idea of what enlightenment is, of course, we often will go to words and concepts, and we'll often go to extremes as well. So what I've just tried to explain will likely lean you to either think of it sounding a bit like some sort of eternalistic heavenly state, or to a sort of nihilistic end state. And enlightenment is neither of these. So I'm trying to point us there with words, but it's neither eternalistic or nihilistic. So we need to go beyond words and concepts, and that's why symbol is really important in the Buddhist life. And that's why all over our center we have these different paintings, images, statues, symbols like badgers and lotus flowers, because through an image or a symbol, we can sort of get a bit closer to what it is we're really getting at. So the Buddha is our example. He's an embodiment of enlightenment. He represents our inner potential and the highest human potential that we all have within us to develop, because we are all potentially a bodhisattva or a Buddha. And what we dwell on, we become. So it's important to dwell on the Buddha and the qualities of the Buddha if we want to make spiritual progress. So I've got a little extract from Bhante. He's referencing a story from the Pali Canon, and then he says a little bit about it. So I'm just going to read that to you now. A Brahmin once came to see the Buddha and asked whether he taught all his disciples the way to nirvana equally. When the Buddha affirmed that he did, the Brahmin asked, "But do they all equally attain enlightenment?" When the Buddha replied that some did, while others did not, the Brahmin was again rather puzzled and asked, "Well, why is this? If they all get the same teaching, why don't they all realize nirvana?" The Buddha therefore gave him the following example. "Over there," he said, "is the city of Rajagaha. Now you know the city of Rajagaha. You know the way to the city of Rajagaha. Suppose two men came to you and both ask, 'Please tell me the way to Rajagaha.' And suppose you gave quite detailed instructions. 'Go along this road, turn that corner, go through that grove of mango trees, and then you'll get to the city.' Suppose you give both of them these directions, and suppose one follows your directions and arrives, but the other does not follow your directions and does not arrive because he makes a mistake. Would it be your fault? Would you be to blame for that?" "No," said the Brahmin. "If, after I'd given the proper directions, one of them found the way, but the other did not, it wouldn't be any fault of mine. I wouldn't be to blame. I am only the shower of the way. I only give directions." "It is the same in my case," said the Buddha. "I am only a shower of the way." The Buddha is the only one who shows the way, but it is up to the individual to follow that way. to decide for himself whether he's going to follow that way or not. We may say that this attitude shows tremendous respect for the individual. It shows great confidence in the potential of the individual. It shows an appreciation of the fact that the individual cannot be forced. He must want to change. He must want to develop. All that one can do is show him how. Show him an example, encourage him, and if one can, inspire him. But one can do no more than that. So that's the end of that extract. So we have been lucky because we have been shown the way. We haven't directly met the Buddha, but his teachings have been passed down to us. And yet that doesn't mean enlightenment is guaranteed. We could still get lost on our way to Rajagaha, to return to the metaphor of the story. So what could we do to help keep on track, to keep going till we get to that mango grove? And this path to enlightenment, it's both very personal and particular and individual. So for example, the things and the practices that are going to particularly help me make progress will be a bit different to Viryananda, will be a bit different to Sangha. You know, we're all particular and have particular conditioning, particular receptivity. So there'll be like lots of things in common and lots of things that are nuanced and different. So the path is individual, and yet there is something supra-personal present at the same time. So it's this interesting blend of these two things. The Buddha would teach particularly to the individual in front of him. He would give a particular teaching of what that person needed. And of course, over our lifetime, as we change, the practices we need will change as well. And we can see, if we step back, that there are a whole set of practices, our system of practice, that if we take as a whole, can work for anybody. So both are true. It's hard to talk about, but both are true. So tonight's talk, what I'm aiming to do is see if certain aspects of the symbol of the Buddha, of the enlightened mind, are there particular resonances in what I sort of say and evoke? Do you notice a particular resonance within you? And what I'm going to do is suggest some particular specific practices related to each of these symbols, and I'll invite you to take them on for the week. And I just wanted to say, I think it's important to say, you know, the spiritual life isn't an easy one, although neither is the secular life. I think, you know, it isn't easy, and therefore we need to refresh our inspiration regularly so that we can enjoy our spiritual life and keep in line with where it is we're wanting to go. And as I said before, dwelling on the goal, dwelling on the pinnacle, the Buddha, will help us to get there. And it might be for your temperament, the way for that is to dwell on the historical Buddha. That might be the right way for you at the moment, on Shakyamuni Buddha, who we have an image of here on the shrine. And you can do this in all sorts of ways, reading Pali Canon scriptures, reading books that tell the Buddha's life story, meditating on the Buddha. You could even go to India on pilgrimage to the sites the Buddha visited. And another way is to dwell within the 5 Buddha Mandala, so this image, and that's what we're focusing on in tonight's talk. So the Buddha, enlightenment, it's this hard to express set of incredible qualities. So perfect, incredible energy, compassion, wisdom, unshakability, fearlessness, the list goes on. For me, certainly, if I try and meditate on the Buddha, on Shakyamuni, I can often get a little bit disconnected and a little bit overwhelmed because you're really trying to turn your mind to the full picture. Well, I'm trying to turn my mind to the full picture of enlightenment, and it's quite, for me. So for me, actually, when I first heard of this 5 Buddha Mandala, it really helped me to have more of a way in, which is why I want to explore that tonight. So the idea of this myth and image is that the Buddha, enlightenment, is this pure white light. And like if we hold up a prism and white light comes through and splits into a rainbow, we can focus in on particular qualities and give them embodiment symbols which point us that way. And it's sort of like zooming in on one aspect of enlightenment. Really, we're still seeing the whole picture, but it's like a way in that can be quite helpful. Certainly for me, I find it helpful. So the 5 Buddha Mandala is this mandala of these archetypal or mythical Buddhas. And the light, so you have the white light in the middle and then split into these lights of green, red, blue, and yellow. And there are pairs of Buddhas within these colours. There are 5 masculine Buddhas called the Jinnas and 5 feminine Buddhas known as the Pranyas. And each one of these is an embodiment of the enlightened mind. And as I touched on, they're all essentially the same as Shakyamuni, but it's just a different way in that our mind potentially can sort of get on board with a bit easier. And because enlightenment is so deeply mysterious, it's important to engage your imaginal faculty when we're trying to turn towards enlightenment, because just your rational conceptual mind won't get you close enough. So that's the other thing we'll be doing tonight, is can we engage our imaginal faculty in one way or another? So each Buddha in this mandala, there are these different colors, and within that there is so much rich symbolism that's built up over hundreds and hundreds of years, and it's all pointing towards enlightenment. So there are different mudras, so gestures of the hand that point to something, elements, poisons that they transform, wisdoms that they exemplify. The list goes on. And if this sort of thing sort of excites you, there's a fantastic book called Meeting the Buddhas where you can learn loads about this. And I'm only going to be scratching the surface tonight. So if this interests you, I really encourage you to look at the book Meeting the Buddhas. What tonight's going to be is a bit of an introduction to 4 of the pairs of Buddhas. So we're going to be looking at the colors around the edge of the mandala. I'm going to lightly evoke them so that you can get a bit of a sense of them. And notice if there is a set in particular that is resonating with you in some way. So notice any bodily response. And for each, I'll give you a suggestion of a practice you could take on for the week ahead. So what we'll be doing now is having a sort of a meditative minute, and then we'll go into a bit more of the talk. And we'll do that 4 times so we can look at 4 of these colors. We're going to start, yes, if you want to change posture, feel free. We're going to start with golden yellow. So if you feel comfortable to, please feel free to close your eyes. And I'm just going to gently drop in a few small details of the south of the mandala, the golden yellow Buddhas. Their names are Ratnasambhava and Marmaki. They're made of golden yellow light. There's imagery of golden fields glinting in warm sunshine. Flowers in blossom. The sound of horses running. Abundant jewels. And the earth element. And the golden yellow Buddhas, their right hand is outstretched in the mudra of perfect generosity. So you can open your eyes again. And just notice if there's any response at all. There might be none at all. There might be a little bit. Just noticing anything subtle. So for this part of the mandala, I'm going to talk a bit more about this mudra. So what's really helpful, so I think when I used to think of this mudra, I would think of it like this, like some sort of outstretched act of generosity. And Srivati, my preceptor, was saying, well, actually, it's like this. It's like it's vertically downwards. It's supreme, perfect generosity. And I liked how she talked about it, because if you're doing this, so you're offering something, you could very easily take it back. Whereas with Ratnasambhava and Marmaki, it's perfect generosity. It's nothing can stick. It's absolutely given. And I think it can lead to really helpful reflections about your own practice of the second precept of generosity. Is your generosity open-handed? Where are you angle-wise from here to here? When you give, are you hoping for something back, actually? Which is very human. I certainly resonate with that. So I think it can lead to an interesting reflection. And I wanted to rejoice in Aryadasa for generosity, because what I've seen him do again and again and again is give away things that he loves, so paintings, rupas, items that are precious to him, just so easily. When he feels a connection to somebody, he'll just give something away in such an easy way that I find amazing, actually. He's so generous. And he does it in all sorts of ways. And I thought, yeah, that is what, and something in me sort of responds and reacts, because I think, oh gosh, like it challenges me, because can I give in a way like that? But it also inspires me, because I think, yeah, I could actually. So I wanted to rejoice that, yeah, you'll know people like that who are able to give in this very wholehearted way. So if there's been a bit of resonance here to any of the words, the symbols, the imagery, or to this mudra of perfect generosity, then this might be your practice for the week ahead, reflecting on your own act of the second precept. How do you give? And this week, could you give a little bit more? Something to think about. Okay, we're going to move to the north of the mandala, so you can close your eyes again. We're now evoking the emerald green Buddhas. Amoga Siddhi and green Tara. They're being composed of this glistening emerald green light. And the landscape is in a midnight forest. There's a sound of clashing cymbals reverberating through the woods. You see a Vishva Vajra, a double Vajra, golden and glowing. And the element of air. And you see their right hand is held up in the Abhaya Mudra, in the fearlessness mudra. Okay, I invite you to open your eyes when you're ready. So this mudra, so the right hand up in fearlessness. So when I was thinking of this, I was thinking of Moksha Leela, who is a good friend of mine, and I find her to have a very grounded presence. And her Shraddha, so that this is a word for like confidence. Her confidence in the Buddha is very palpable when you're with her. And she gives the gift of fearlessness with her presence. And I think when I both hear about and witness her facing difficult situations, I'm very inspired by, I feel like she embodies this mudra, this sort of, this. So if there's been any resonance within your being to this, so this deep green color, the forest, the double Vajra, and I think there's a lot of fear around, a lot of fear and anxiety. If that's something that you're working with particularly at the moment, or that you feel a response to, then what I would suggest here is a practice of chanting their mantras. So you might chant Amoga Siddhi's mantra or Green Tara's or both. And mantras are mind protectors. So in the next week, if you feel yourself getting anxious or frightened of a situation, I invite you to chant a mantra, whether that's out loud or just in your mind. And what I'll do is I'll get some recordings of these mantras on Slack. So if you're not sure what they are, you'll be able to listen so that you can have a go yourself. And I've sort of purposely tonight not brought any actual images of the Buddhas, because I think there's something to, especially if it's your first time hearing of these Buddhas, just sort of seeing what response happens organically in your being. And then later you can look at some images, because of course there's so many different approaches to creation and art. I think it's quite good that your first response, if possible, is sort of come from within your being somewhere. But I'll also share some images. If you are interested to see more of the picture, you can. Because of course we all imagine differently. There might be imagery, but there might not be. It might just be a sort of texture or a tone. It could be all sorts of things. Lovely. So now we'll go to the east of the mandala, to the blue. So you can close your eyes again. So now we're evoking the deep blue Buddhas, Akshobhya and Lochana. The light of these Buddhas is darker than sapphire blue, a very deep blue. And we're in the landscape of mountains, with great crystal lakes. We see a symbol of a Vajra, a diamond thunderbolt. We feel the steady gaze of an elephant. And the element of these Buddhas is water. The mudra of their right hand is in the earth-touching mudra, lightly touching the ground, touching the earth. Okay, you can open your eyes again. So our Rupa of Shakyamuni Buddha is in this mudra, this earth-touching mudra, so something you will have seen, many, many times. But touching the earth, not the air. And the wisdom, so I mentioned these different Buddhas have different wisdoms. The wisdom of Akshobhya and of Lochana is transforming hatred into mirror-like wisdom. Transmuting the energy of anger, ill will, irritation into a clear, unbiased awareness that sees things as they are. So people can be quite tricky sometimes. And from a wisdom perspective, when you're in a dynamic with someone or a friendship, a relationship, a work relationship, whatever it is, when there's trickiness there, something I find helpful to return to is it's not actually personal. It can seem personal, but because of conditionality and how incredibly complex conditionality is, it's not actually about you, which I find a great relief. And I want to rejoice in Ananta Kirti because I've seen her be so wise and loving in very complicated situations. And I feel she brings this mirror-like wisdom, this straightforward, seeing things as they are, and therefore being able to turn this sort of energy into something beautiful. And I think part of how she does that is she has a really strong, long-standing and regular gratitude practice. And I've not asked her about this, but that's my observation. I think that's something that means she can do that. So if there's any sort of resonance here with the colour, with the Vajra, touching the earth, this idea of transforming hatred into this mirror-like wisdom, if there is a dynamic for you going on at the moment that is tricky, you could see, well, how could you bring the Blue Buddha's wisdom perspective to this situation? So a suggestion for the week ahead, you might consider preparing for your meditation practice differently this week. You could spend 5 minutes before meditating writing down 10 or 20 things that you're grateful for in the people you know. You can broaden it out like you would in a metta bhavana to the different people you know. What sort of gratitude is present? And in the Dharma, gratitude is knowledge of benefits received. So you doesn't have to be a particular feeling in your body. It's just thinking, oh, where have I received benefit? And can I make a list of that? See how that affects your meditation practice. And I particularly suggest, if this is the practice you're taking on this week, do a metta bhavana. So gratitude, metta bhavana, put that person in the fourth stage of your practice. And why not during the fourth stage, touch the earth? So like this, whilst you're meditating, touch the earth, form that mudra with your hand and see if any effect comes from that. So we come to the last part of the mandala for tonight. There is also the center, the white light, which I'm not going to talk about today. Well, we did earlier through the Buddha, but we're not going to talk about the kind of more archetypal side of that. What we're going to do is end our evening in the west of the mandala, in the red. So you can close your eyes. So now we evoke the ruby red Buddhas, Amitabha and Pandaravasini. Here we're in front of the ocean and there is a vivid sunset in the sky. There are lotus flowers blossoming and a sweet and beautiful scent in the air. The element of this part of the mandala is fire. The red Buddha's hands are in the dhyana mudra, the meditation mudra. And these are the Buddhas of compassion. You can open your eyes again. So yes, it would be sort of resting on your lap, your hands supporting each other, and the sort of like more refined version would be the thumbs are lightly touching as well. So this is the dhyana or meditation mudra of the red Buddhas. And I think it's really important to remember how crucial a regular meditation practice is to cultivating a compassionate heart. And, and there might well be spells of time within your Dharma life where meditation isn't easy. I've certainly had a history like that. But you don't need to let that dishearten you. That will shift and change when it's ready to. But at some point, when you're sort of ready, turning towards a more regular and deeper meditation practice is really important for compassion to be cultivated. Meditation is an ethical act. There are positive consequences on you and on others from meditation practice. And when a Sangha has consistent meditators within it, it makes a tangible difference. We have Jayagupta in our Sangha, who has meditated every single day for 40 years. And he said to me, he's meditated in all sorts of conditions and all sorts of strange places. And when I think of Jayagupta, I think of his compassion and his playfulness. And that is linked, that meditation practice is linked to how he is in the world. And we're lucky that he leads meditation retreats for us. And we have Upeksharaja in our Sangha, who has meditated near enough every day for 30 years, who generously leads our Friday night meditations, which have an opportunity to share meditation experience at the end, which is such an important opportunity and offering. When I think of Upeksharaja, I think of his warmth and gentleness and creativity. And again, these things are linked. So if you're resonating and responding to the red Buddhas, my practice suggestion for the week would be to add 10 minutes to your current meditation practice to take that a little bit deeper. So if you're not meditating at the moment or not in the habit, why not just meditate for 10 minutes, maybe 3 times a week? Something that's, I think, achievable, manageable is good. If you already meditate every day, then yeah, add 10 minutes to what you're doing. So a little recap of these practices I'm suggesting. So for the yellow Buddhas, the golden yellow, generosity, reflecting on the precept of generosity, how you give, how it could be more open-handed, how it could be more vertical. For green, fearlessness, chanting mantra, whether out loud or in your mind. Could you bring that into situations where there is anxiety or fear? For blue, gratitude practice and metta bhavana, putting people you're finding tricky at the moment into that 4th stage and turning towards rather than turning away. And for red, extending your meditation practice by 10 minutes consistently this week. So in the groups, my suggestion would be to talk about, were there any resonances for you tonight? Or was there a particular feeling of being blocked to this idea of this 5 Buddha Mandala? All your responses are welcome. So you could share that. And if you are going to take up one of these practices this week, an opportunity to share that as well. Thanks.